Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And in today's episode, I have a simple question that folks in Atlanta just can't seem to figure out. When will Orlando Arcia learn to stop taunting Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies? We'll discuss it in today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me for some of my other work in the sports talk radio space. I've been over at 97.5 The Fanatic doing sports talk radio for about 5 years now. 3 years a credentialed member of the Philadelphia Phillies Media Corps, and 3 years your host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff you hear podcasters talk about all the time. I mention it all the time. You have no idea how much it helps us out when you do stuff like that. So if you enjoy the content, I would really appreciate it. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I love Game Time. They're the absolute best. Now, you haven't seen an episode from me for 2 days. You may not be able to tell right from my voice how it is now, but the past 2 days, I did not have a voice. I could not put a sentence together without coughing up a lung. I sounded terrible, so I had to take a couple of days. Listen, happens to everybody. It was just quickly passed on, though, so I'm good. I was back on the radio this morning, obviously back doing episodes today, so sorry for what I missed. Hope you all understand. We take sick days just like the next person at any given career, but that's why you haven't heard from me in a little bit. But I've got the victory shirt back on today because the Philadelphia Phillies found a win last night in Atlanta, a 3-2 victory, a razor-thin margin of victory, and we're going to break that down, but I need an entire segment. Heck, I could do an entire show. I could do an entire week's worth of shows on Orlando Arcia. This dude just doesn't figure it out. So last night in the game, a 3-2 victory for the Phillies, like I told you. The 2 runs were scored for Atlanta by way of a 4th-inning home run off the bat of Orlando Arcia. And Arcia has not been having the world's best season. I mean, it's not like he's in an MVP conversation. It's not like you're looking at him and saying, oh, well, he's been carrying the Braves. His team, let's start with the team as I pull up the stats. The Braves are 7 games back of the Phillies in the National League East. It is not a tight race in the division right now. Now, it may be at some point. Like, I'm not saying, oh, well, this is locked up. Don't worry about it. Like, the Braves are dead and gone. No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying that there's a sizable gap in the division. It's also August 22nd today. It was August 21st when this happened, to be exact. And Arcia's numbers so far this year, I mean, he's batting .226. He has a total of, with that home run, 12 home runs and 36 RBIs. Like, it hasn't been a good year at all for him. It's not like he's having an exceptional season for the Atlanta Braves. So I don't know what he's celebrating, but if you'll remember, the background of this was in the NLDS last year. Bryce Harper hits into that crazy double play to center field, or not, he doesn't hit into it. Sorry. He was on first base for it. A crazy double play gets hit. He's already around second. They throw him out at first to end the game. Honestly, like, objectively, this is the nicest thing I'll ever say about the Braves organization. That was a sick way to end a playoff game. Like, if that was the Phillies and they ended up winning that series, like, I would replay that forever. It was so cool. It was a great play all around by the Atlanta Braves. But after, in the clubhouse, people overheard Orlando Arcia saying, "Attaboy Harper," and making fun of him. And the next night, well, not the next night, but the next game in Philadelphia, Bryce Harper goes yard twice, absolute moonshots. The Phillies win the game, and around the bases each time, Bryce Harper stares directly at Orlando Arcia, saying, "Hey, buddy, I heard you. It was a dumb thing for you to say then. It's still dumb now, and you woke me up." And that's just what happens when you taunt Bryce Harper. We've heard it with the people who yell overrated at him on the road. It feels like I've seen a clip once a month in Bryce Harper's tenure as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies where someone's chanting overrated at him, and then he hits a nuke. So, stupid guy to taunt, stupid time to do it. Orlando Arcia woke up the Philadelphia Phillies and Bryce Harper in that series, and they ended up going home partially because of it. Now, I still think the Phillies win that series regardless of Arcia's comments, but he had to feel pretty stupid after that. We've also seen clips of him yelling at fans from the dugout. So we know that he's not the most calm-minded, cool-headed person when it comes to dealing with people yelling at him or criticism or anything like that. And then he hits this 2-run home run last night. And he rolls around first base, staring daggers at the back of Bryce Harper. Now, Harper didn't even notice he did it because, I don't know, he doesn't really think twice about Orlando Arcia, and why should he? The level of gap between those two players is gigantic. But a lot of people noticed. Definitely got picked up on the TV broadcast and was definitely mentioned on the TV broadcast. And a lot of people thought the Phillies should have thrown at Orlando Arcia, or at least going up and in, made him think about it a little bit for staring at their superstar player. Now, part of me understands the want for retaliation because in baseball, it's the great equalizer, the ability to hit a guy. It is not used as much now because baseball's cracked down on it. Suspensions get handed. It's not the 80s and 90s where you'd have guys not afraid to plunk a dude no matter what he did. You step in the wrong direction one time, you're wearing 95 to the ribs. But it doesn't happen as much anymore. And the Phillies decided not to do that. But what ended up happening was the Phillies led a strong comeback in the game. They end up winning the game 3-2, as I've told you. And now Orlando Arcia just looks like a clown once again. Like, dude, get this through your skull. You are not on the same level as Bryce Harper. You're not. And your team right now is not on the same level as the Philadelphia Phillies. And you're making your organization and your whole team and everybody involved in that look dumb with these actions. And there was a great point by a guy who covers the Atlanta Braves. The name escaping me at this time, but he's one of the guys, the main beat reporters for the Atlanta Braves. I was like, yo, where was this energy basically? Where was this energy last year when the Phillies were mad at you for saying that in the clubhouse? Like, this should have been the immediate reaction, not the sanctity of the clubhouse. And you weren't supposed to hear that. It should have been, yeah, we said it. And when we hit another bomb, we're going to stare at you about it. And instead, the Braves backed off it and they played soft, and then next thing you know, they're out of the postseason. Now this time around in August, 11 months later, Orlando Arcia hits his 12th home run of the year and decides that's a great time to go ahead and stare at Bryce Harper. And you end up losing the game. You end up looking like an idiot. And it's just like, here's the thing. It doesn't bother me because what should I care? You're helping us win. And also, no one on the planet besides you think you're in the conversation with Bryce Harper in any sense of the word, besides him getting mad at you and then just nuking baseballs off your pitching staff. So stupid front to back, this whole thing. What is also interesting about it, too, and I didn't think about this right off the bat, but it was brought up by a couple people who called in, texted into the radio station this morning when we were talking about it. They said, well, Bryce Harper been in a pretty major slump lately. And that's true. This is one of the biggest slumps, if not the biggest slump of Bryce Harper's career that he's in right now. So maybe this was a good thing. Maybe you're looking at a situation where this little extra motivation, right? Orlando Arcia dumbly staring at Bryce Harper after hitting an inconsequential home run in a regular season baseball game is what Bryce Harper needs to motivate him a little bit, to give him that extra spark, right? Not that Bryce Harper's not motivated to be good at baseball, but just like the little extra fire of like, oh, word, that's how it's going to be? All right, I'm going to turn it on right now. Like, that's it. It's not like, you know what it is? Like, we just watched Steph Curry in the Olympics and how he took over against France in the gold medal game. It's not like Steph Curry is not trying to make threes at other points in the game. But the great ones, even when they're struggling, they have this extra gear that's deep inside them that they're just like, when somebody talks trash, when somebody wakes them up and pokes the bear, they're going to answer. And maybe this will be a little external motivator for Bryce Harper to knock the rust off and get out of this slump. And that would be all. I would accept donations to send Orlando Arcia an edible arrangement for what he would do if Bryce Harper came out of his slump because of this. It's crazy. And the comments after the game were great. Bryce Harper said he didn't notice. He basically did the Don Draper meme saying, I don't think about you at all. And Rob Thompson said, yeah, so I heard that happen. People told me about it. Gamesmanship, but we won. And that's basically what it comes down to. There's no quote about losers focusing on winners and winners focusing on winning. The Philadelphia Phillies last night were focusing on winning. And Orlando Arcia can spend the rest of his career, if he'd like, yelling about Bryce Harper or staring at Bryce Harper. It doesn't change the fact that this team is going to whoop your team's ass. That is what it is. But last night was not exactly a whooping. It was a 3-2 victory, and the Phillies lost the opening game of the series, and neither of these games have seen a great performance by the Philadelphia Phillies offense. Now, We're going to break down the game coming up that happened last night. We'll talk a little bit about game one as well, since I didn't put together an episode for that one because I was sick. But you saw some good pitchers, and yet still the offense is leaving something to be desired. So we'll break down everything outside of the Orlando Arcia quotient of last night's game coming up next and talk about where the Philadelphia Phillies are at and what may change as a result of something that happened last night. Rob Thompson maybe changing his strategy, at least in a small part. We'll discuss it coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. But first, let's talk about a new sponsor, Tonal. Yeah, come on. This is, you may recognize Tonal, but be like, well, where do I know them from? I'll tell you in just a second. But for those of us who thrive on getting stuff done, including workouts, every single minute counts. That's why you need Tonal, the smart strength training system that takes the guesswork out of working out so you can make sure you're making the most out of every rep. Tonal's the world's smartest and most effective strength training system that helps get you stronger. Powered by AI, Tonal, not Allen Iverson, artificial intelligence, which we know is the smartest thing out there these days. Tonal learns with every rep so it can deliver workouts personalized just for you. Tonal learns from your movement and provides suggested weight recommendations. It does all the thinking for you. So what you do is you get up, you do the exercise, you take care of business, you get the job done. Helps you with recommendations for your individual goals, and based on your individual goals, it's like having a personal trainer at home with you, as Tonal will optimize every workout just for you. I've personal trained in the past. I have my personal training certification through NASM. I know what stuff works. And Tonal, having that, it definitely helps you get the knowledge and the encouragement that you need to work out the right way. From professional athletes to the Mama 3, Tonal is trusted by thousands who have become their strongest version of themselves. And right now, Tonal is offering our listeners $200 off your Tonal purchase with promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Tonal.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off your purchase. That's Tonal.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off. All right, let's get into a breakdown of game two. And we'll talk a little bit about game one of the series down in Atlanta. But one game apiece now. The Phils are 1-1 in their series with Atlanta. And they have a chance to win the series tonight, which we're going to talk about in our final segment. But last night was an interesting game. And the night before, I mean, it's a pretty quick conversation about game one, right? Did Rob Thompson leave in Jose Alvarado a little long in an inning where he walked the bases full and then walked in a run? Absolutely. The reason he left him in that long, he thinks that getting out of that spot could probably be a spark plug for Jose Alvarado. There's no other explanation for it. He wants to see the big guy work out. If you pull him there, you don't show faith in him. Should he show faith in him? Probably not, considering his track record. But the Phillies are better with Jose Alvarado being good. You had an opportunity for him to build momentum. It didn't work out. That wasn't great. But what really killed you was the fact that you had 5 hits in the game, 1 run, and a lot of guys just did not produce. 0 for 4 from Schwarber, 0 for 4 from Turner, 0 for 4 from Harper. Not great, right? Well, fast forward to last night, and we take a look at the box score for the Phillies, and we see 3 runs on, again, 5 hits. Now, they were able to scrape more runs across, but you see 1 for 4 from Schwarber, 0 for 3 from Turner, 0 for 4 from Harper, 0 for 4 from Bohm, 0 for 3 from Castellanos. I mean, your top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. Let's put in an 0 for 2 for JT Realmuto. 6 guys in the lineup had a total of 1 hit between them. So that's 1 hit in 7, 11, 15, 18, 20 at bats. 1 for 20, not great. When you have your top 6 guys in the lineup, and I'm just going to do the math here, bat 050, that's going to be a problem. And I don't see this as like a long-term. I know they've been slumping. I know they've had their rough offensive days. They've had their good offensive days mixed in there. And they just have, again, guys not swinging their best. And it's been going on for way too long. But let's not overreact to it. They did win the baseball game last night. They won 5 of their last 7 games. They're not playing poorly right now. They're finding a way to victory. They're not churning on all cylinders right now. But what you need to do is get the top of the order going again. That's when this team is at their best. Now, the fact that they were able to put stuff together to score 3 runs, great. And it's great work by the bottom of the lineup. I mean, Weston Wilson, 2 for 3. We're going to talk about him more in a second. Edmundo Sosa, 1 for 2. Yohan Rojas, 1 for 2. All of those guys scored a run. Those were the 3 runs were from Wilson, Sosa, and Rojas. Now, what do great teams do? They win games when their best players aren't having their best days. They find ways with depth. It's not ideal. but it is sometimes necessary. And the other thing, too, that I'm looking at from last night's game, well, the first 2 games of the series, is you face Reynaldo Lopez and then you face Max Fried. And both of them looked really good. I know Lopez was just coming back from the injured list, but those are 2 really good arms. Like tonight, you got Spencer Schwellenbach, who's been pitching well, but he's not quite the same quality pitcher those other 2 guys, and that's putting it lightly. I mean, the track record is highly in favor of Reynaldo Lopez and Max Fried when compared to Schwellenbach. So you saw a couple of tough arms. You found a way to win 1 game. You've got a combined 10 hits in those 2 games, which isn't great, but scraping out victories is the way that you continue to push yourself in the right direction. Like, we're going to do another basketball analogy. I used the Steph Curry analogy in the first segment. Sometimes in basketball, right, when you're in a shooting slump, you don't need to just like cash out a 35-foot three-pointer with a hand in your face, nothing but net water. Like, no, you just need anything to go. It could be the ugliest like floater in the lane with no one on you, front rim, top of the backboard, back rim, front rim, and like it doesn't have to be pretty. It could be one of those ones, we've all done it. If you're like a men's league player like me, shot it from the corner and it somehow skims the backboard and like goes in. It doesn't matter. You need to see one in to take the lid off, and then it starts building momentum. That's what these games are kind of like. It doesn't have to be pretty, but you find ways to win ball games. You build confidence. You think, okay, well, we're winning. I've got a little bit less pressure on me to come out of this. And then next thing you know, you find your team playing the way you expect them to. It's survive and advance for the Phillies at this point, folks. They're in a really good spot in the division, 7 games up on the Braves, as I've told you. Now they're in a tight race for the top seed in the National League, and that's going to be more the focal point as we get deeper into the season with a month and change left to go. But right now, it's about winning baseball games however you can do it, and the Phillies did that last night. So I'm not going to kill the offensive approach. It does have to be better. It's not worth getting worked up over right now. Like, just looking at last night, I'm not saying this stretch, because if you want to be worked up over how the Phillies have hit over the past month and a half, be my guest. I won't get mad at you for that. Like, I don't consume baseball that way because I believe in the talent level of this team. But like, if I'm not going to fight against you if you're like, well, they need to have better approaches at the plate, and we've seen it for months. Absolutely. You're correct in that. But last night's not the night. They find a way to victory. You survive. You win the game. That's all that matters. Now, I told you I was going to bring up Weston Wilson again. Rob Thompson talked after the game because we've seen a lot from Weston Wilson. We saw him hit for the cycle. We saw him last night with a couple of big hits and scored the winning run. We saw him do a lot of stuff really, really well for the Philadelphia Phillies over the past, 4 or 5 days. And he's a guy that should not be an everyday player for this team. I've called him a quad A player on here, on the radio. And that's not like I guess it is a little bit disrespectful. If I was Weston Wilson and someone was saying that about me while I was doing what he was doing at the major league level, I'd be ticked off. So I don't mean it as like a disrespectful thing, but I have to go by what history says, what the numbers say. And his track record would show that he's more of a between AAA and MLB player, quad A. He's not a AAA guy, but he's not truly a major league guy. And those guys can have big moments, but if they play too much, they're normally exposed for what they are. And that's the balance you got to strike. But Rob Thompson said after the game, he's like, well, I got to consider playing Weston Wilson again tonight because the bat's just too hot. He's been putting together too many good at-bats. And when you have the hot hand, at some point it becomes undeniable. It's not one night, but it's multiple nights. And it's at-bats that are helping you win ball games. And that's what Weston Wilson has been giving you. I want Weston Wilson to be good. Don't think that because I'm doubting him in the long term, I'm rooting against the guy. I think he's a solid ball player. Like, all things considered, nice depth piece for this team that you can reach out to and do whatever. Whenever you need him, you can add him into the lineup. Like, I do think once you get Austin Hayes back, you're going to send down Weston Wilson, but he'll be right back up with September call-ups. Like, so it's not that big of a deal. I don't know. I like what he's done. It brings up an interesting point, though. If Weston Wilson's going to play left, then you got that platoon set up in center with Marsh and Rojas, and there's this whole conversation about Marsh has hit really, really poorly lately. Rojas has hit really, really well lately. Rojas is better defensively, but you're facing a righty in Spencer Schwellenbach. So do you go with Marsh to go lefty-righty? Do you stick with the hot bat in Rojas and go righty-lefty? There's a lot to be considered there, and that's going to play into the preview of tonight's ball game and what I think they should do. But take this off the table. Weston Wilson should start. he should be your left field starter tonight. And I think Rob Thompson is going to do that. And that's a step in the right direction for Rob Thompson, because normally he's a guy that when he sees someone have a hot day at the dish or a hot couple of games at the dish, he'll say, great work. Appreciate you. I'm sticking with the guys that I came here with. Like, I'm sticking with my main dudes. You did great work for the team. It's nothing against you, but I believe our ceiling is with these players, and I'm going to do that almost to a fault. Keep those guys in. Excuse me for voice still not totally saved, but that's been Rob Thompson's strategy. And if he sticks to that, I can't blame him. But it seems like he's making a decision that is clearly, with the way Weston Wilson's swinging the bat right now, in the best interest of the team. I'm glad that he has that little nuance in his strategy to make exceptions. So you should see Weston Wilson on the left. We'll talk about Martian Rojas and also preview Game 3 coming up next segment. But I want to tell you about Supply House first, because you need to get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. I mean, supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. You can shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Maybe you need help with an order. Well, you can get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business, and you can talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades, you can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free, that's right, I said FREE, free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. I mean, why wouldn't you join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks? You got to go check out my friends at supplyhouse.com. I also want to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. And I'll tell you a little story. So last week, Thursday night, I had some plans. And the person I was going out with, this girl, she was like, hey, I actually want to go catch the Phillies game tonight. And I said, you know what? You know me. I love the Phillies. But it was last second. It was right before first pitch. So what did I do? I went on my Game Time app, and I found great last-minute seats. And you know what ended up happening? We had a wonderful night, sat in great view of Weston Wilson hitting for the 10th cycle in Phillies history. That moment doesn't happen for me and the girl that I was there with without our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature too called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I mean, Game Time has all the features that you want in a ticket buying app. Let's just talk about baseball for a second, or sports. They have views from your seat, so you know how you're going to be able to see the game when you go. They have all-in pricing, so the fees, they don't just pop up at the end and surprise you. No, you see everything from Jump Street. Prices, yeah, they go down the closer you get to first pitch. So you can get a great late-minute deal. And the lowest price guarantee means if you find seats in the same row and section for less, 110% of the difference is given to you by the Game Time guarantee. They've even got ticket coverage, so your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. They don't just do baseball. They do all sports, comedy, concerts, theater, everything you could think of. You want to go to a show, you want to go to anything, they've got you covered. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. You can get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with the folks over at Game Time. All right, let's talk about Game 3 as the Phillies look to go for the series victory. But I do want to remind you, thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Now make Locked On MLB your second listen. Host Paul Francis Sullivan, you know him as Sully. He's got humor. He's got knowledge. He's got everything you need to know about the major league storylines. And he covers the entirety of the major leagues, not just the Phillies. So if you're wondering what's going on outside of Philadelphia, he's the guy to check out on Locked On MLB. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tonight on the mound, I already told you, it's Spencer Schwellenbach for the Atlanta Braves. Young righty who's been throwing well lately. Now, the record's 4-6, the ERA is 4.04, and the WHIP is 1.07. So the WHIP's not bad. The ERA's good. The whip's not bad. The ERA is higher, which means he's probably given up a good number of home runs. And in 75 and 2/3 innings, he's given up 10. It always checks out, right, folks? 85 strikeouts in 75 innings, though. He's got some K stuff. So that's something to keep an eye on. A righty, the Marsh-Rojas conversation. That's why it's interesting. But you send Christopher Sanchez to the mound, who's been pretty darn good for the Phillies. He threw a complete game 2-hitter last time out against the Washington Nationals. So can he keep that going? 9-8 win-loss record, a 3.46 ERA, a 1.25 whip. Where this game is going to be won, right? Because I believe the offense has a better day. I'm expecting 9 or more hits by the Philadelphia Phillies offense, and I'm expecting Bryce Harper to have 2 of those in tonight's game. That's my prediction for tonight. I think the big point is going to be, can Christopher Sanchez go out and dominate again? It's tough, especially when you're a young pitcher who hasn't had like seasons and seasons and seasons of getting stretched out to be a major league pitcher, to go from complete game to, wow, I got to get back after it. Body might be feeling a little bit sore. You might be a little more tired. Maybe not today on your start day, but on your rehab day, on your cardio day, on your flat ground day, as you're working your way through your routine, Christopher Sanchez might be feeling it a little bit more, especially this point in the season. So I'm a little bit worried that it may not be his best start tonight simply because of those factors. But if the offense holds up their end of the bargain, well, you should be okay either way, I want to say. The Phillies would really like to win this series against the Braves and put a stranglehold on this divisional race. A lot on the line and a lot for the Philadelphia Phillies to take advantage of. They are minus 105 on the money line. The Braves minus 115, so almost a near pick 'em in this contest. The Phillies a 52.9% chance tonight in the ESPN Analytics predictor. The Braves 47.1% chance. So the Phillies favored in one, not favored in the betting odds, though. So toss-up is basically what that translates to. Here's more of the conversation on the Marsh-Rojas thing, though, as we talk about what the lineup should be for tonight. I'm putting Brandon Marsh in center field, lefty-righty, and here's why. To me, it's simple. To other people, it may seem complicated. So I'll explain myself, and I'm not saying like I'm 100% right, but I think I'm pretty close to 100% right. I want you to think through this scenario, right? And you might say, partway through, Connor, how is this a bad thing for the Phillies? I need you to give me a second to explain myself, open your mind to the possibilities. Good? You ready to open your mind? Okay. So let's say Rojas goes out there tonight. He's been swinging a hot bat. I have no issue with that. I would understand why Johan Rojas was in the game. Like in a vacuum, I get it. So Rojas goes out there tonight, and he goes 3 for 4 against Spencer Schwellenbach, and he looks great at the plate. He makes a great defensive play in center field. They win the ball game. Well, what do you do if you're Rob Thompson? Next game, you're like, wow, Rojas is hot. I got to put him back out there. Let's say Rojas stays hot, and he's really, really good for the next month and change. Like, he plays 9 games to 1 of every Brandon Marsh game. Or let's just call it 7 games to every 3 that Brandon Marsh plays. And it becomes less and less dependent on the handedness of the pitcher. I mean, after all, Johan Rojas is kind of a opposite splits guy. He's better against righties when you look at his historical data. Again, this is the point where you're going to say, Connor, what's wrong with that? Here's what's wrong with it. And this is why it's important to keep your philosophy intact if you're Rob Thompson. And this is why I think Brandon Marsh should be in center field tonight. Because you're going to come around to the postseason, and you're going to have Austin Hayes in left, and you're going to have Johan Rojas in center. And we remember what Rojas did in the regular season last year. In over 100 at-bats, he hit over 300. Like, I think it was 301 exactly. But then in the postseason, when the lights get brighter and the pitching gets better, he was a non-factor. And in those cases, you know what you're going to want to do? Hey, Brandon Marsh, you were arguably our best hitter in the NLCS last year. When everyone else slumped, he was ready. Go out there and take a couple of hacks. Get the start here. We need you to be a big part of this offense. And you know what he's going to look back at you and say? Now, he won't say this, but like hypothetically, just think through this for it. He's going to say, guys, I've been getting minimal playing time because Rojas has been hot. And now when you want to go to your best left-handed bat off the bench, he hasn't seen the amount of pitching he needs to be completely ready for the postseason. Right? It sounds crazy to say, would you sacrifice regular season wins to be more ready for the postseason? But 1, I think that's a no-brainer. 2, I think you can have your cake and eat it too. Like, I think you can put Brandon Marsh in center field and still win baseball games. He hasn't been good, but it's the same thing as the Bryson Stott. You got to give him chances because the best version of your team has a good Brandon Marsh. And if you just leave him by the wayside to play the hot hand with Johan Rojas, you may be in a situation in the postseason where Marsh has not come out of this. He's a non-factor. And then you have two guys in center field who are not helping the team. The long-term view is the right one, I think, in this situation, which is why I'm starting Brandon Marsh in center tonight. Either way, chance to win the series, chance to take 2 or 3 from the Braves, and that would really, really put a stranglehold on the divisional race. So I would love to see it. We're rooting for him. Hopefully I have the shirt on again tomorrow, and hopefully after 30 minutes of straight talking, the voice holds up for everything so I can put out some more episodes. We're going to make up some episodes over the weekend because I feel bad that I wasn't talking to you guys the past 2 days. So we'll do that. But I will talk to you tomorrow on the next. Oh, I got to remind you, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube. I almost forgot. I'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.